Hello and welcome to an episode of What Did She Say? I'm your host Chrissy and thank you so much for tuning in. If you are coming back and you've watched my previous episodes, I feel like we're getting the hang of this, aren't we? We're getting the hang of this and I'm happy to say that. If you're new here, thank you so much for tuning in. Like seriously, like you picked me. Oh my gosh, I've finally been picked. Ew, cringe. If you watched my last episode, which was titled My Testimony, My Walk with God, I hope you enjoyed it because I'm not going to lie, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like even just like watching it back and editing, I was like, this is kind of lit. So I really hope you guys enjoyed it and you gave your feedback because I die for positive praise. But also I love some criticism because I love to like elevate, and I just feel like if I'm not getting criticism, then where's the development? You get me? But yeah, guys, I'm not gonna lie, I have a bunch of oil and deep conditioner in my hair right now because I'm having an everything shower today. I am washing my hair and that takes a jolly good long time. I was supposed to wash my hair and then come record, right? But this UK weather, I can never trust that I could go downstairs, have a half an hour shower, have a half an hour shower. Sorry, can you understand why that was so hard to say? Me and my heavy tongue. I couldn't trust that I would go have a half an hour shower, come up and the sun would still be here. And guys, I'm not gonna lie, if I lose lighting, we lose all credibility here because I'm not gonna lie, my room, Miss Sully, has incredible lighting. So I really revel in that because I don't need to use any like artificial lighting. I just be sitting here and the Lord's light provides as he always does. I also want to just give a big shout out to myself and my amazing graphic tees that I keep on spoiling you guys with. If you know, you know, this is one of my favorites. And actually I wore my actual favorite one in my last episode. And if you were able to figure out what it was, I say you comment below and tell me which graphic tee I wore last time. Yeah, I don't know how I haven't mentioned my obsession with anime yet, but I feel like it resonates through me, you know? But today's episode, guys, is going to be kind of random and weird in a sense because I don't think I've ever heard people speak about this, but I feel like it's so important and this might be helpful to anyone leading up to this point in their life or anyone in this point of their life or anyone who's past this point in their life and they're going to be like, OMG, like, yeah, ew, who says that? You disgust me. I'm just gonna recalibrate myself. So what is the title of today's episode, you ask? I actually haven't figured that out yet. But what we are going to talk about is being 24 years old and what that comes with, right? In my podcast so far, I feel like I've spoken a lot about my religion, about my culture to an extent, because I feel like both of those come together when you're Coptic Orthodox. But let's just talk about where I am in life. You know, being 24, just in case you didn't know and you thought I was a lot more youthful. But actually, what I think is hilarious is mentally, I haven't passed 22. I just feel like 24 sounds so mature. Yet I don't feel that. But then in the same paradigm, I feel 45 and divorced. So I need someone to try and make sense of that for me. It's very complicated, you know, being Chrissy. So yeah. A few things I want to touch on, right? First of all, I'm an adult with acne. And I purposely didn't put on any like skin makeup today. I purposely kind of like left my skin so that everyone could really hear what I mean when I say adult acne. And it's a really tricky one, I'm not gonna lie. It started when I was 22 because I've been dealing with this now for about 2 years. I feel like, again, it's something that people don't talk about enough. Like I didn't even know it was a thing until it happened to me. I grew up with touch wood. Well, what's the point of touching the wood now, mate? Because it's here. Anyways, I grew up with pretty great skin. Like everyone was always complimenting it, like, okay, Miss Queen, okay, Miss Glass Skin. And I'm like, yeah, what can I say? And And then, yeah, I hit 22 and early 2022, because guess what? I was born in 2000, so I can never really forget my age because I could just think, oh, what was the year? Oh, it was 2022, so I must have been 2022. And I watched a TikTok of this woman talking about how she had spent her whole life on birth control and she'd never experienced adulthood without it. And at that point, I had been prescribed birth control since I was 19 due to my period pains. And you know the NHS, like, oh, I have a wee bit of period pain, like, how do I deal with that? Oh, here you go, take some birth control. So since I was around 19, I've been on birth control. And when I decided to stop taking it, when I was 22, I realized that when I stopped the pill, I started getting these like spots, but like they were really like, there was probably like 4 spots here. I call it on my contour area. So I call it contour acne. I started getting a couple spots. And for someone who does not get spots, this was the end of the world for me. I was so stressed out. I was so upset. I literally called the GP crying. I was like, I literally can't go out. I'm so embarrassed. This is disgusting. I hate myself. It was so dramatic because, girl, if I could go back, I would have done nothing to my skin and it probably would have, remained at a couple spots and it probably would have gone away by itself. I don't know. Moving on, I get prescribed 1,000,001 different creams by the GP. And every time I use a cream for a certain amount of time, more spots started developing. And now it looked like acne. I was getting spots all over my cheek, like all under my chin. I honestly can't remember the names of the stuff that I was being prescribed, but I think I started with benzoyl peroxide. Whatever, I can't remember. But I was prescribed about 2 or 3 topical creams before I was like, enough is enough. Like, I'm actually suffering here. I realized I got my timeline all wrong. It was actually early 2023. I'm so sorry. It was just before I turned 23, right? When I decided to stop taking the pill. So technically I was right in saying I was 22, but it was, it led me through my birthdays in March. So early 2023, I was like only 22 for about a couple months. And that was it. I just thought, honesty is the best policy. So I want to be so candid here. I was 23, so I've now suffered with adult acne we're coming on to 2 years, over a year and a half, okay? So end of last year, I finally get prescribed a 3-month course of antibiotics. I think it's called limacillacline or something like that. I am not good with medical jargon. And I feel like my pharmacist friend is really going to enjoy hearing me embarrass myself trying to say these medicines. Shout out to you, girl. So I'm on the 3-month course of antibiotics, and honestly, I did actually start to see an improvement. Like, versus all the creams I ever used, I was seeing improvements, and I was really happy about that, right? The only problem is, obviously, being on antibiotics for a long period of time, especially as a woman, can cause issues such as yeast infections, because what antibiotics do is they remove all the bacteria from your body, even the good bacteria, which you need to keep things going afloat. You get me? So that was not great, and I suffered with that for quite some time. I know TMI, but you know what? Grow up and be an adult. We're here to talk about adult things, okay? Okay. So after the 3-month course, I called my GP again, and I'm like, okay, so what's the next step? Are we gonna like refer me to dermatology? Because the acne was like, it was calm, it was chill, but it hadn't cleared. And I also was really scared about the possibility of it flaring back up now the antibiotics are finished. And the doctor gave me 2 options. She said, look, we could either put you on another course, because I can't refer you to a dermatologist before I put you through hoops of fire, or we can just go back to a topical cream, which is like a really low level retinol, but it'll kind of keep the acne at bay, help with scarring, so to say. Like, I don't know. Any other option than antibiotics, I was down for, because I did not want to be on another set of antibiotics for another 3 months. I just think that's insane that we're just popping antibiotics like they're chewing gum. I just think that's crazy, but cool, whatever. So I go and I start this cream called Differin, and I'm not gonna lie, I've been using it now since February this year, and it's chill. I literally apply it on my cheeks, just under my cheekbone, and around my chin, because that's where I get the acne, and it does keep them at bay a lot of the time. My skin is very smooth, very 2D. I think it's a lot of like under the skin scarring and redness sometimes, but it's not too insane. It's not too bad. it's a lot better than it used to be, you know. So I'm grateful to God, because I prayed to him a lot about it. The only time that I will be a little bit stressed out now is probably around my period, when I get kind of like big unnecessary spots. So I've got like, I'm coming up to my period now, so I've got one huge one here, a little one here, a little one here. So yeah, that tends to happen. But again, I try to ignore them. I try to not pop them. I try to just leave them to calm down by themselves. And if they get too insane, like I might just have to put a pimple spot on them, or just keep on with my routine. So yeah, I gave you guys the context of my acne. Now I want to tell you how it made me feel suffering with acne as a 23-year-old, as an adult, and also like as a teacher. Like, it was really something I was very insecure about, but in the same breath, I chose not to cover it up, and not to be like, power to the people, more like, I don't like feeling obligated to do anything. And if I feel obligated to wear makeup, it's going to deter me even more. Maybe I have a problem with authority. I don't know. But yeah, I didn't cover it up a lot of the time. Like, every day, I just don't, pick me. I don't wear makeup. I just don't wear makeup every single day. It feels like a big chore and a big hassle. Doing makeup in the morning is long. So I just don't do it. And I never did it, even when my skin was at its worst point. I really had acne blindness at one point, especially when I was in Bali last month. I think it was a mixture of me using an exfoliant on my skin because I thought that was helping when it wasn't, and also the sun. I don't know, it must have been a few things, but my acne, I honestly looked like I had leprosy. But I think at that time, because I was tanned, I didn't really see it, or I didn't really care. I'm not too sure. But when I look back at pictures now, I'm like, that was scary. It's giving leper. In fact, it's giving leopard because of the amount of dots on my face. Insane. If you want to go look at it, I have pictures on my TikTok. But yeah, emotionally though, especially at the beginning, oh my gosh, it was so hard. Now, no one mentions it. I don't mention it. But when it started, I think everyone around me was as taken aback as I was, because they were like, oh my gosh, what's happening to your skin? Like, what's wrong with you? And again, it was like a couple dots on my face, but people had no chill. And when I mean people, obviously I mean my family, because who else is going to be more brazy and outspoken than your family, right? And again, I'm Egyptian, so you know, outspoken is probably an understatement for my family. Let's start with my mum, for instance. That poor woman would just ask me a simple question of, have you done something different with your skin? Like, maybe it's something new in your makeup routine, because, you know, I'm seeing a little, and I would just start crying. I'd be like, Mama, how could you make me feel so insecure? Like, I don't have a mirror. And I start crying and cry. Like, honestly, this happened on like a couple occasions, and she eventually just got the hint and she stopped asking any questions to do with my skin. Except for when it was getting better, she would say like, oh, your skin looks better. And I'm like, I don't want to hear it, but thank you. My dad, obviously a lot less understanding and respectful, to say the least. I can't honestly remember what he would say, especially at that time. Like, now I don't really hear anything about it, especially because like it's really clearing up. But at that time, he'd be like, what is that? Like, why does your skin look like that? Like, oh, like, why don't you call the doctor? Again, broski, I have a mirror. Like, I've been calling the doctor, you know. But again, sometimes it's like banter, like, oh, ha ha ha, let me ring that ding dong bell on your face, like, ha ha ha, funny. My grandmother, I'm gonna share a little funny anecdote, because that old biddy, she be so out of pocket sometimes. It was coming around the time of my auntie's wedding. It was in November last year, and I think, yeah, my skin was quite flared up at that time. It was actually just before I started the antibiotics, right? It's my auntie's wedding in a couple of weeks, and my grandmother, I go over to her house. Big mistake. I go over to her house and I'm just chilling there without any makeup, and she goes to me, the wedding is in a few weeks. How are you going to go with your skin looking like that? I said, you old biddy, you know damn well that I'm going to be wearing makeup. Why are you talking? Like, why are you talking like that? I literally bugged out on her. I was like, Teta, you need to get a grip, because I don't comment on your missing teeth. So why are you commenting on my skin? As you can tell, my family are very triggering. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. I'm just trying to share with you the experiences of someone who suffers with adult acne. But yeah, emotionally, it did really suck. I'll be real with you. But in the same breath, sometimes I'd be praying to God. I love to pray in my morning commutes. This, by the way, I'm doing a driving mime with my hands because I drive. So in the morning, I would pray and I'd be like, thank you, God, for everything you give me. It's all great. Vibes. God, please help me with my skin and help me because, vibes. But also, I also like to acknowledge, thank you, God, so much for not only my confidence, but for my beauty. Like the fact that I'm even confident enough and I can acknowledge that I have enough beauty to go out into the world with this skin, I think is such a blessing. So if you are suffering, or if you might suffer in the future, God forbid, with something like this, I want you to realize that actually you are beautiful and you don't need to cover up your acne. Like, it's actually all about confidence, because if I wasn't a confident person, I wouldn't be able to recognize my beauty in other places, in my face, in who I am, right? I would probably just sink into a very deep hole because my skin is not great. But yeah, moral of the story, my skin was really bad at one point, especially last year. It was really bad. Like, honestly, I would even wear makeup and the texture of my skin was insane. Like, there are pictures of me wearing a full beat at my cousin's wedding, and at certain angles, especially where like the light is hitting or a shadow is hitting my face, and you could literally see bumps all over my skin. When I saw those pictures, I literally wanted to chop my head off. I was like, wow, this is insane. But again, in the moment, I don't feel it. So I think that was kind of a blessing. Okay, enough acne talk. Let's move on to my next point, which is the frontal lobe cortex. Okay, if we're friends, I've been talking about this for a minute now. When I was growing up, I always heard about this frontal lobe cortex thing that develops when you hit 25. But something I found really interesting is actually, it's like the day I hit 24, this thing in my brain started to like work overtime. And I didn't even realize it till very, very, very recently. Because when I turned 24 on the 7th of March, I made a very big decision for myself on the 11th of March. And I didn't realize why I was doing it. But on the 11th of March, guys, I decided to remove my tongue piercing. Now, I had my tongue pierced since I was 17 years old. I thought I was a real bad man. I thought I was so cool. Okay. I literally only did it because I thought it looked cool. I liked the aesthetic. I just thought, yeah, cool girl. And I never really cared for what people's perceptions were of me. I didn't care for people's connotations to that particular piercing. I said, I don't give a crap what you think. If your head is in the gutter, keep it down there, keep it down there and don't come up for air. But for me, I'm doing this because it's cool and I'm a cool girl. Okay. But when I hit 24, I was just like, and it was so weird because you guys, if you don't know me, or you don't know me too tough, like, I love that piercing so much. Like, I've always got my tongue out in pictures. Like, it's just, that sounds so weird, but that's just always like kind of my go-to pose. I liked having a tongue piercing. I just thought it looked cool, especially when you're talking, and then like that little silver shine when you in the mid. It was just cool. Okay, there's actually no other explanation for it. Okay, but when I hit 24, I just thought to myself, yeah, I'm kind of over it now. I don't think this suits the brand I'm now trying to portray. I'm trying to rebrand myself in a way that's fitting to who I am and fitting to the woman that I want to be, which is ultimately a woman of God, a daughter of God, and I know I've mentioned this before, but again, I don't care in the slightest what you think of me as a person. I only really care what you think of him, and I asked to be a vessel of his light, and I can't really be a vessel of his light if my exterior doesn't match the interior, if that makes sense. And don't get me wrong, a lot of people are still going to sit here and say, oh, but you got so many piercings and you got tattoos and you don't dress particularly modest, you can't be a vessel of his light. Okay, slay for you if that's what you think. But I'm trying, again, it's a journey. You get me, guys? It's a journey. And that removal of my tongue piercing, that was a very big step in my journey. Again, I think when people comment on modesty, I think it's insane because everyone everyone is on a journey, or those who choose to be on their journey are on a journey, right? And if you think I'm immodest now, you should see who I was before, right? And I actually had a conversation with my friend recently where he was like, oh, but you posted in like, you know, when you were doing yoga. He wasn't getting on to me. I was actually getting on to him. He just tried to call me out because I was calling him out. Props to him. But he was like, didn't you just pose in your little yoga fit a couple of days ago and post it on Instagram? And I was like, oh, well, you got me there. But then I thought, but also, you didn't have me on Instagram when I was posting bikini pics, you know? I call that character development, okay? So I'm not rocking a burqa at the moment, but I'm also not posting bikini pictures anymore, or as much. Sorry. I think it's really funny how modesty becomes a little bit of a fluctuant idea around the summertime, but that's neither here nor there. Maybe we can have an actual episode surrounding modesty one day, because I think it's interesting, but I don't think I have much to say on the topic other than I'm trying and I'm not always going to get it right. And give people grace and pray for them. If you feel like someone is not reflecting God's light in the way that you think is right, just pray for them. Don't judge them. Don't send them hate. Just pray for them. Like, I really think it's as simple as that. Yeah. Anyways, back to the tongue piercing. So when I made that decision to take it out, I just thought it was the right thing to do. And I felt like it was like a calling from my Holy Spirit. A lot of the time when random ideas or thoughts pop into my mind, I kind of know they're coming from my Holy Spirit. I know he's speaking to me and he wants me to make the right decision. So I felt very content in my decision making. Funny as well, when I tried to get to my dad and find out what his reaction was. So my dad always hated my tongue piercing. To be quite frank, my dad hates all my piercings, especially my septum, which, by the way, is my ride or die. Don't ever come for me. Don't ever come for my septum, because that's my ride or die, okay? But my dad hates my piercings. And he said this when I got my tongue piercing. He said it when I got my septum. He said, if you have this one, don't talk to me. I was like, okay, cool. He calls me 5 minutes later. But anyways, I take out my tongue piercing and I'm like, Daddy, do you see anything different? Do you think this man even cared? He just gave me a half smile and kept it pushing, like, excuse me, sir, like, where's the well done, I'm so proud of you? Nothing. That man has no idea what positive praise is. That's probably why I seek it so much. I'm joking. So that was just one of the biggest decisions I think I made early on when I became 24. And then it felt like it was a continuous thing where I just began to mature so much, like opinions, ideas, the way I react emotionally, the way I even think, everything started to mature. I just became a lot slower to react. I feel like, again, I'm not perfect, far from it, but I feel like a lot of the time now, even if I have a really crazy emotional reaction to something, it could take 5 minutes for me to like switch on the emotional intelligence and kind of think really logically and think, okay, well, actually, I don't need to be feeling like this. And actually, we can have just like a really mature conversation about it. And acceptance. I think a big part of emotional maturity and intelligence is acceptance, and accepting that actually people are going to do what they want to do. And your feelings a lot of the time are not going to matter to them. So you can either get really upset and cry about it, or you can just choose to move on. And again, for me, that idea really switched on for me when I turned 24. And I don't know if anyone else has experienced this, but it would be interesting to know, because I have. I also think it's a really interesting point in my life where I'm 24. It sounds like a big age, but I still live with my family. I still am very much like a dependent on my mother and my father. Not even necessarily financially, but just dependent on them. You know, I live with them. And I think that does something to your psyche in making you feel like you're a lot younger than you are. And I'm not complaining. I'm very, very blessed to be in the situation I'm in. But I still think it's something worth mentioning. I think a lot of Christian and non-Christian North African Arab women can relate to this, because obviously we culturally don't believe in moving out of your family home before you get married. And I have no intention of doing so either, because I think it's a great idea, personally, especially for someone like me. I wouldn't move out of my family home before I get married. Well, that's the plan anyways. It's worth mentioning that I don't just think it's, a magical switch in your brain that, happens when you hit a particular age where it's 12 a.m. and then boom, you're changed. I personally think a big part of why I've had all this emotional development and maturity, some would say, is also because of how my relationship with God has progressed a lot. I think that makes me want to be a better person. I just don't want to give all this credit to being 24, turning 25, frontal lobe development. I also just think God is a really big part of my life, and I think making him happy and making him proud is probably the biggest reason for my development. But again, I also think it's age, because I think a lot of people, religious or non-religious, go through this, but I just always thought it was 25. But the fact that this is kind of happening to me now at 24, I think is kind of interesting. I don't know. Last but not least, I think my final point is going to be on just kind of addressing, again, another cultural perception that kind of spins my head sometimes, right? I'm 24. When my mother was 24, she had already popped out all 3 of her kids. When I deep that, I'm like, when my mum was my age, she was raising 3 children. I get a day off work and I'm spending it in bed binging Netflix. That spins me. Do you know what I mean? And I also want to say and mention that if that is you, and you are at, whether you're 24 or older, and you have no relationship prospects, it's okay. Don't let Teta, your grandmother, your grandfather, your mother, your father, your aunties, your uncles, don't let these people make you feel like you're the problem. Don't make anyone make you feel like the problem. Don't allow society to let you feel like you're a problem, or that your position is a problem. And again, this is something that I personally deal with, and I'm not saying I've even accepted that fact, because sometimes I'm just like, oh my gosh, my ovaries are drying up and I'm not gonna have babies. And yeah, I stand by that. But in the same breath, ladies, and even guys, because maybe there's a guy out there, bro, my brother's 18 and he keeps on saying he wants to go to Egypt to find himself a wifey, but okay. This is just a PSA to anyone who's in their waiting period. Don't let societal pressures make you act crazy. Don't let societal pressures or family pressures make you lower your standards, make you settle for particular people or for particular relationships that do not serve you. Where God has put you right now is serving you, right? If you are single, and it doesn't matter about your age, that is a service to you. And if we're going to look at it from a Christian lens, understand that actually being single is such a blessing, because it is probably the only time in your life where it's only you and God. You don't have to worry about anyone else's issues. It's just you and him. You can put so much of your time, of your efforts, of your emotions into service, into helping others, into becoming a better Christian, into becoming a better person. But I think a lot of us don't take advantage of that, and we just sit there waiting for, a husband to come and sweep me off my feet. But actually, I literally heard this from a woman who was in a relationship. She was like, I miss being single because there's just a lot less time for me and God. There's a lot less time to sit there with my Bible and dissect it. There's a lot less time to sit in God's presence. And I don't know how much of that is true, because I feel like if you want to make the time, you will. But I guess logistically, when you are really busy and, working, and there's only a few hours in the evening to do things, and you have to give some of your time to a relationship, maybe some of that time of your Bible study is going to be cut short because you need to speak to a man, because you need to speak to a girl. So I think, again, relish in the time that you have now when it's just you and God. Relish in the time that you have now not being a parent. If you do want to be a parent at one point, relish in the fact that right now you are not responsible for another human being's life, because once you become a parent, you are their world. And if you think being in a relationship is going to cut your time short with God, imagine being a parent. Imagine being a whole mum. Do mums even have time for Bible study? I don't know. But maybe that's something to think about when you feel a little bit of pressure, when you feel like, oh, do you know what? I'm just going to settle for this guy who doesn't drive, doesn't take me out, doesn't do this, sorry. I'm not trying to push my standards onto you. A man who doesn't drive is probably a great man. Why did I say that? Don't settle for anything or anyone that is below your standards, and everyone's standards are going to be so different. Mine are going to be so different to yours. You might think mine are too high, you might think they're too low. Who knows? Who cares? I'm not going to share them because I think mine can be so controversial sometimes, and if you know me, you probably know what they are, and I might do a whole episode on them one day. Who knows? My point is, I once heard this thing and it was like, where you are right now is exactly where you need to be. Don't fret, don't stress, and this goes for people who are married, who are in relationships, who are single, who have kids, who don't have kids. You are exactly where you need to be right now. God has put you in this position because it serves you. Relish in that. And if you want something, continue to pray for it. If you want something, work for it. Set a goal, set a plan. And if it doesn't happen, it's just not for you. Whatever is for you will not pass you. I think also the really cool thing about being 24 is, I think mentally, like I said, I'm still kind of like 22. So it's funny to me when I see people in my year group or just a little bit older than me or even younger than me getting engaged, getting married. Some people have had kids around my age group and I'm like, oh my gosh, like you're too young, you can't do this. And then I'm reminded so quickly, this whole human being is 24 years old. They are a grown-ass adult. Like they are very much on track doing these things. It's not insane, but in my head we're still in sixth form, so that doesn't compute. I also think it's really cool that, like I said, some people my age are getting married and having kids. Some people are moving abroad. And then in the same respect, I also have people that are way older than me and they're still living with their parents. So like I said, it's a cool little point in your life where actually everyone is at different points, and that kind of gives me comfort in a sense, because then I'm like, okay, so I still got time for these things, you know. I really pray that I can practice what I preach, because I really do sometimes need someone to say these things to me, and hey, maybe I might come back to this episode when I need to hear this, or I have incredible friends that will remind me, and I'm your incredible friend, and I'm here to remind you of all this great advice. If you are 24 or around this age, you're in the same boat, you're in the same position, just know that you are not alone. You'll never be alone because God is always with you. Slay. And also, your friends are probably going through the same thing. Like, just talk to your friends because they probably are going through the same thing. I feel like 24, guys, is a really good age. I feel like we're kind of in that sweet spot between understanding the culture of millennials, but thankfully not being labeled as millennials. But that's not true. Some 24-year-olds are like millennials to their core. But then also being part of Gen Z, but not in that really cringy way. Like we're just kind of in a sweet spot, right? If you were born around 2000, I feel like we're cool people, you know, we're cool people. I wouldn't really label myself millennial or Gen Z. I feel like I'm just kind of in that sweet spot, because I can be equally cringe as a millennial or a Gen Z person. So that's pretty cool, I think. I have an incredible career ahead of me. God has blessed me with so much passion and so much experience in my career, which is as a teacher, and I've got that to look forward to. I've got an incredible support system, family, community, fellowship, church, friends that I can rely on, that I can speak to, that have got my back. So there are so many blessings, and I'm not going to sit here and list them, but I just want you, again, whatever point you are in your life, to just always just kind of like count your blessings, because they are infinite, right? And that's really important to acknowledge. Don't let anyone or anything stress you or pressure you into making any life decisions that feel like they are going to emotionally strain you or are going to set you off course. Just be content in where you are right now. And if you are looking for different things in your life to explore, and if you are looking to achieve more than where you are right now, do it, pursue it, work hard, achieve it, you know, girl boss and that stuff, which I don't really adhere to because I'm very lazy. But just always know that you are enough, and where you are right now is okay. don't feel pressured by anyone but yourself. If you want more for yourself, if you want particular things for yourself, do it, but don't let anyone else press you, because that's not cool. Anywho, I feel like we have touched all bases today on the experiences of a deranged 24-year-old woman. If you have any more experiences that I did not touch on, please leave them in the comments, and it'll be really interesting to read and reply to, of course. I really hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you have any suggestions for episodes that you want to hear me speak about, please let me know. Either DM me on whatdidshesay_CGO, or you can leave comments below, either in the Spotify comment section or the YouTube comment section, wherever you are accessing this. Please make sure to subscribe, follow, rate the show on Spotify, and follow my social medias, which are TikTok and Instagram. All my social media handles will be in the description below or above, I don't know. So if you want to follow me just for more extra content, please feel free to do so. I like to interact with people and hear from you, so please make sure you do that. Guys, this was a vibey little episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Please make sure you stay tuned for next Tuesday to find out what did she say. That is getting really corny now. I've done that twice and it's now getting cringe. Let's do that again, but a little bit less cringe. Guys, please stay tuned and make sure you come back next Tuesday to find out what did she say.